Hi, I am Nella and today I'm going to tell you my story. I will talk about things that I have not shared anywhere before, about my eating disorders, what they were about, why they started, and how long they lasted. That my throat was sour and would hurt. I would have red dots on my eyelids and overall my face would look quite puffy. I saw that my grandfathers could still be alive and living a fulfilling life. My grandmothers could be these really vital and sharp people. In order to give you a full picture of why I changed my lifestyle, what were my struggles before and what are my benefits, I need to start from the beginning. Just to be clear, I've always been slim, which doesn't mean that I've always felt that way. The good feeling about your own body really comes from within, regardless of what you see in the mirror. Let's start by talking about body image and perception. Up until 18 years of age, I never remember contemplating about my body image or never wanting to be thinner. Although there was one time when I must have been about 14 or 15 when my mom told me that she used to be much thinner at that age. Thanks, Mom. I'm sure she meant well, but I recall doing whatever exercises I could think of in the solitude of my own room to achieve thinner waist. I don't think I was restricting myself food-wise, at least I can't recall, but something must have worked because the next time I had weight concerns was when I was 18. Now, this particular story is something I really want all the young girls, and why not even boys, want to hear, because I think there is a lot to learn from. Now, there I was 18, just out of high school, not having no concerns whatsoever about my body or weight, when someone suggested I try to become a model. Well, I was very flattered because it had only been recently when I realized that I might not be ugly after all, but becoming a model is a whole other story. It seemed to me that I might be biting off more than I can chew. I still decided to bite the bullet and I went to a local model agency. I still remember so clearly how the lady there measured me with her eyes from head to toe and so trivially said that I needed to lose some weight. And that was it. She added nothing more. No advice about how much weight or how to do it, and that really rocked my boat. I was so messed up when I left that office because all the perception I had about my body had been wiped away and I had no idea how to get my act together. No silver lining here, right? Looking back, I was in healthy weight and very slim, but I guess the industry's standards are somewhat different. This was the moment I considered to be the trigger for my eating disorders that continued throughout my early 20s. To make a long story short, I still decided to give this modeling thing a go and I did lose weight. Now, mostly by starving myself because I had no knowledge of nutrition, about macros, micros and the whole shebang. My life brought me to Milan where I lived a bit more than a year and I did work as a model, but not very successfully because firstly, I'm not very tall, only 172 centimeters. Secondly, posing also today remains quite awkward to me. I really needed to force myself not to feel ridiculous. And thirdly, I saw it as a short-term thing anyway before I continued my uni studies. I will also show you some photos here from my modeling time. I think it would be fun to see. It was now 21 years ago. The least I weighed during this period was, I think, 48 kilograms. So bone and skin really, but not quite sickly yet. I remember going to Burberry casting, being bone and skin and all, and their clothes didn't fit me. This is how the industry is. As far as eating was concerned, I really played by the ear. My breakfasts would be something like buttery, white floury croissant with warmed cow's milk. Really good start for the day, right? Or I remember there were some kind of spongy bars I'd buy from supermarket. I guess they were made of eggs and flour and sugar and whatnot. And during the day, I would eat something like a Snickers bar, makes a good lunch, or a huge pear. I still remember buying this huge pear, thinking that if I eat this thing, it will make me fat because it's huge, you know. To me, I was thinking about food per quantities. The more volume food has, the more calories I would get from it. So in this perspective, a Snickers bar would be a better option than a pear. Every now and then we would go to a restaurant, and then my dinner was a huge pizza, which I ate all by myself, or a huge bowl of really oily pasta or something like that. But the thing is, I would never restrict myself from eating it. I would eat the whole thing and even more, and the next day I would simply starve. So I had like the periods of feasting and periods of fasting. So my eating disorder really was about not eating regularly and not eating regular amounts or like really good nutritious food. As I already mentioned, I had the feasting and the fasting. And then of course I had bulimic episodes when I would make myself sick. So I would make myself vomit to get rid of the contents of my stomach. That didn't happen on a regular basis though. I think when I lived in Italy, let's say about once in every 2 weeks. And when I got back to Estonia and I already had met my husband and we lived together in our first apartment, from that period I remember maybe 5 episodes per year. But I'm quite a strong person in that way. I never needed any outside help, any professional help. I was able to go through it myself and heal myself. A turning point for me was when I already felt that after my bulimic episode, my throat was sour and would hurt. I would have like these red dots on my eyelids, and overall my face would look quite puffy. I knew that it's not healthy and that I admitted to myself that I have an eating disorder and I have like some kind of psychological problem here. So I decided to turn a new page. Fortunately, it was quite simple because as soon as I realized I needed to do something, I really wanted to do something because I didn't want to fall into this black hole. And a side note here, I was always slim, but I perceived myself as a fat person. I felt fat. So how was I able to remain slim? In hindsight, I think the key factors there are that one thing is my genes. Of course, lifestyle always is more crucial, but genes are very important as well. Secondly, as I said, I had those feasting and fasting episodes. So every time I would feast, I would also fast. Then I've always been very active. I like to walk around, and I think in Milan, when I was doing the castings every day, I think I walked like 2 hours every day. I always try to commute on foot whenever possible. And also, I've always loved veggies and fruits. I've never been a junk food addict. Yeah, I could eat pizza or pasta, but I could also overeat fruits and vegetables. It was normal to me to eat like 1 kilo of oranges in the evening. And at the same time, I could eat a whole liter of dairy ice cream. I remember my favorite was rum raisin version. And I literally would eat a whole liter of ice cream. Take that. So fast forward 8 years or so, I become pregnant. I give birth to my baby boy, and I'm stuck with a few extra kilos. And no matter what I do, they just stuck on me. At this time, I remember my very good friend had started to study in a nutrition school, and information started to flood in. She was sharing her discoveries about plant-based eating. I remember at first I was really skeptical. I remember this particular time in a cafe. I was with my husband, and she told us that even fish wouldn't be a good idea to eat. I remember so clearly rolling my eyes, thinking that she's crazy. Now you can't eat even fish anymore. But something rang the bell for me, and I started to research myself. I started reading Colin Campbell's The China Study, and this was really a paradigm shift for me. I remember I read bits every day when my kid was sleeping, and in the evening when my husband would come home, I would tell him what I had discovered, and slowly, step by step, he became convinced as well. We started to transition our eating towards a almost 100% plant-based diet. I really need to stop here for a second and talk about my husband. He's been a real beneficiary of this new way of eating. He was hospitalized with gallstones. I think this was the first year we started to transition ourselves, and he still would have sometimes some animal products or really fatty food or so. And there was this one barbecue event, and someone had brought this conventional brownie that was made of butter and sugar and eggs and whatnot. Early in the morning he drove to hospital because the gallstones hurt him so much. He was in the hospital for I think 3 days, and the surgeon told him that he definitely needed to have a surgery to get this thing fixed. He refused then and there. He really then committed to my whole food plant-based meal plans, and he has not had a single problem with his gallstones or gallbladder ever since. He also lost like 15 kilos in the first 6 months of transitioning. I remember when I had the paradigm shift, I had a feeling that everybody in the world should have this information to be able to make the best decisions about their lives and their loved ones. And I felt like I wanted to shout it out from the rooftops. I almost did that. I was so enthusiastic, and I was so eager to spread the word that I didn't realize that not everyone is prone to make changes or able to see a wider view. So I backed off quite quickly. This is why I do things the way I do today, giving information through my blog and my book Plant-Based Made Easy, for example, and meal plans, is that I'm here with all the resources. And whenever someone feels he or she needs to make a change, the materials and resources are here, and I'm here to help them. It was kind of a bit difficult with families and things in the beginning because they didn't want to understand, which for me was kind of outrageous, because after reading everything I had read and realizing and making the connections, I saw that my grandfathers could still be alive and living a fulfilling life. My grandmothers could be these really vital and sharp people, which unfortunately they are not anymore. So for me it was a hard realization. I didn't want my future to be like this. Of course my child is still really young, but I already think about when he has his own children, and I am a grandmother, and I want to be this vital grandmother and cheerful grandmother who is able to do stuff with them, to be able to enjoy life. But yes, it's very difficult to see people really close to us who are not very healthy and not quite willing to do anything about it, just hiding themselves from the facts. I wouldn't say I have given up on them, I haven't, but I've realized that it's not possible to force anyone to believe something they are not ready to believe. We just simply have to wait until the realization comes to them, and then I'm here. First thing I noticed, I remember I said that I had those few stubborn kilos on my hips after giving birth. This just shed away, because when I switched to oil-free way of eating, the kilos just went, I don't know, in a few weeks I think they were gone. Another thing that changed was my period. My period got really regular, like clockwork, less pain, less blood. Maybe it's more than you want to know, but the ladies, I think, are interested. Elimination, of course. Digestion is so regular. You go at least once a day, if not 2 times. This was the thing I struggled with, especially when I had my eating disorders. I would have constipation quite often. To get rid of the constipation, I would eat laxative teas that tasted awful and made you smell really even more awful. But this was my mechanism to go to the toilet. That was such a relief to get rid of those things. And my overall perception towards food and myself changed, because food ceased to be this enemy. It became a friend and a nourishment. Food was something that I could eat and feel good while doing it and after the meal was over. I personally started my transitioning very scientifically. I wanted to make sure that I get all the necessary nutrients, especially because at that time our kid was 2 years old. We didn't want him to miss out on anything, nor ourselves. So I started to compile meal plans, and this is how my interest grew actually. I discovered I like doing it. I remember the whole first month when we started doing this, I would fill in the nutritional data of all the recipes and all the food I was cooking and eating. This is also how I gained confidence that this food really is as nutritious as I had read about, and that I would get all the protein, especially the micronutrients on plant-based diet. You will exceed by, I don't know, 2 or 3-fold in case of some micronutrients, and you absolutely don't need to worry about where you get your protein from. I discovered that recipe development was something that I enjoyed, and I thought that I'm good at it. So my husband started to root the idea that I should start writing a blog. And thank you for that, because I don't remember enjoying my job as much as I do now. Of course, my food photography really sucked in the beginning. Just this moment, I'm reshooting some of the recipes I did back in 2014 because the photos are simply hideous. I remember one day I went back to one recipe, I won't tell you which one it was, and I saw the photo and I really started laughing. I showed it to my husband and said that back then I thought that it would be okay to upload this photo on my blog. So this is one thing I'm really grateful and also proud about, that how much I have developed and how many new skills I've gained during these, I think, 7 years now that I've been running NutriPlanet. And I'm so happy that I was able to write the book Plant-Based Made Easy, which is basically a really practical guide to transitioning to whole food plant-based diet, and that covers all the aspects you could think about initial transitioning, about how to deal with friends, family, kindergarten, schools, gatherings, entertaining, traveling, dining out, even hospitalization, and then the really practical part about meal planning and planning your day around whole food plant-based foods, how to deal with your kids, how to get your kids on board when transitioning to whole food plant-based diet. Moreover, there is a full 2-week meal plan with recipes for breakfasts, lunches, dinners. Also, all the snacks and desserts are included. There are 55 recipes altogether. Most of them are part of the meal plan, but there is also a number of recipes that are extra recipes that you could make out of the meal plan, that are also a bit more festive and maybe a bit more time-consuming, but very delicious. I'm so happy that I put together such huge and useful resources for you to download. One is also for free, and if you haven't downloaded the guide already, I suggest you do so. The link is in this video description. Many of you might already know that one of my niches or specialities is a vegan candida diet. What happened there? Why did I need to start a candida diet? This will be a whole other video where I will be explaining how I messed up with whole food plant-based, what I was doing wrong, and my journey to heal. Other than candida diet, which I'm so grateful I discovered and I consider myself healed, Of course, sticking to some restrictions, which actually are not restrictions to me anymore. It was just a change of lifestyle within whole food plant-based diet. But another thing has arose. I turned 40 last year. I can tell that something is changing in my body. Something to do with hormones. I've already been studying and researching about it because I can feel that my body doesn't react to food the way it used to do like 4 years ago. I started to feel some changes a few years ago, and now I'm still trying to figure out how exactly should I eat to remain the way I was, or then maybe accept some changes in case I can't do anything about them. Let me know in the comments below whether you enjoyed listening to my story. Did you find anything useful from it? And also let me know what kind of story videos you would like me to do in the future. I so appreciate having you here, and it truly makes me happy to deliver this wonderful world of whole food plant-based to as many people as possible. Thank you.